What's going on, guys? It's Dave Haas here, the Rise Up Rich podcast. I apologize, the audio is going to be not as clear as it normally is because I'm trying something new, which is recording this podcast as I drive. And this podcast is kind of about this exact thing, about recording this podcast as I drive, because a big hurdle that people need to learn how to overcome when it comes to achieving whatever it is they want to achieve is procrastination, is trying to make everything perfect, perfectionism. All of these things end up being things that hold us back to achieving whatever it is we want to achieve. So I was a perfect example of this. I mean, Rise Up Rich, David F. Haas, my Instagram account, my coaching program, my workshops, my retreats that are all coming. This is a business, and I'm still in the process of building this business. It'll be growing forever and ever. And because it was so far outside of my comfort zone from what I had been doing for my entire life, which was in the hospitality sector, I'm still involved. I still own a Treehouse in Windsor, and that's still very much part of what I do. But this was a shift for me. So as I started to begin to make this shift, and I wanted to create this coaching platform, and ultimately what this platform is, it's coaching, it's speaking, it's putting out my content at a mass scale so I can impact as many people as I possibly can. So when I started doing this, I got stuck in this mentality of trying to make everything perfect. This was my first hurdle. I needed to have my website perfect. I needed to have all the proper audio equipment, all the proper camera equipment. And that perfectionism, or that pursuit of perfectionism, is what ended up holding me back from actually just putting out content, actually just doing what I wanted to do. It is in doing that we learn. Only through experience can we then go to a place of knowing. So what we end up doing when we have a new idea, we start researching, we start learning, we start trying to absorb as much information as we can, which is all great. And knowledge is power, of course, but knowledge is only power if you put it into use. So this podcast is a perfect example. Before I even started my podcast, I needed to get the proper microphones. I needed to get someone to come in and help me out, set it up. I need to figure out how to record on Audacity, how to edit, do all these things. But it's like I'm meeting with my coach, because I have a coach, because that's how powerful I believe coaching is. And she says to me, she's like, yeah, I just record my podcast on my phone with my earpods. And I was like, what the frick? I spend thousands of dollars on podcast equipment. And yes, the quality of my podcast in my podcast room are a million times better than this is going to be. But here's the thing, I'm still delivering the information. So trying to make everything perfect. And, in the old days, and they're not the old days, 10 years ago, when people thought they needed to start a business, I need to go get a business license. I need to get it incorporated. I need to get, I need to get shirts made. I need to get business cards. I need to make my website, my Facebook page. And it's all these things. And it's like, all of these things are just hurdles. It's just like, just start doing. Yeah, of course, those things are important and part of business, but it doesn't all have to be perfect before you start. It's like you want to get that momentum moving forward, and it is in action that we create the motivation. So if, for example, let's use me. If I just started coaching and started seeing results and started feeling the energy that I feel when I do coach my clients, that energy would have fueled my momentum to continue to get more clients, to continue to do more speaking events. And it would also help my momentum and my cash flow to increase, to get my website up and running, to get the podcast, buy the proper equipment. But I didn't need to do that before I started. So I guess what I'm trying to say here is just start. Don't worry about all that stuff that you need to make everything perfect. Just start. I have a client, and I know he's okay with me saying this story. He's like, he wants to write a book. And he's like trying to make this thing perfect. He's trying to figure out publishers and distributors and trying to figure out how he's going to get it out and who's going to print it, who's going to illustrate it. I'm like, just start writing it, right? So I'm sitting here giving him this advice, and I'm not taking my own advice, right? And another example of this, and related to me, and I'm using these examples because I know that these are things that people are struggling with. You don't have to apply this to business. It can be applied to anything that you want to do, whether it's you want to get in shape. And the next thing I'm going to talk about is procrastination. So the other thing that I was trying to do is I was trying to build like the $1 billion business before I built a very, very small business. Like when I started my first company, I started out with 0 customers. And how did I get more customers? I went door to door and knocked and said, hey, and this is a window washing company. I said, hey, do you need your windows cleaned? It was this personal selling. It was that I had to do the work. I had to be, Gary Vee talks about like being in the dirt. And that's what being in the dirt is going through that uncomfortable spot where you're standing in front of someone and saying, hey, do you want to buy my service? That's uncomfortable as hell, right? So that's where you need to start. Everyone's trying to build the $1 billion app, including myself. But I wasn't starting where I needed to start at the ground floor, which was like, let's just get some clients. Let's just fill an event. Let's message every single person that I think is going to benefit from this event and see if if they want to attend, right? So getting comfortable with just doing the dirt. We all want to do the easy thing, which is run a Facebook ad and then hope people buy, but that's just not how it works. You got to start from the ground floor. So as I made this huge shift lately, like there's a lot of people that are going to benefit huge from my services, and I'm just not reaching out to them. I'm waiting for them to come to me by creating Facebook ads, and all I need to do is say, hey, did you know that I'm up to this? Did you know that I'm coaching and I'm creating insane results for the people that are coaching with me? Like, let's see if I can help you. It's a very, very simple conversation. So the next thing is this idea of procrastination. And what I did recently was I reached out to some of my dedicated followers and asked like, what are your biggest challenges? And one of the people that I reached out to, she said, it's procrastination. And procrastination is an interesting thing because I think we're all procrastinators. We all procrastinate to some level because we're tuned into instant gratification. This is why a lot of people have trouble losing weight, because we're not tuned into the reward. It's so far down the road that when we eat healthy for a week and we don't see results, we immediately are like, forget it. We want that instant reward. So how do you overcome this procrastination that is holding you back? And the thing is, when you get into things like weight loss, things like starting your own company, things like starting a podcast, we can be forever procrastinating because there is no timeline. It's like, well, I'll lose weight next year, or I'll start on Monday, or whatever it may be, right? Because there's no timeline. In school, we had deadlines, and that's when we knew that we had to get the work done. So we freaking busted our ass in the final hour. We pulled the all-nighter. But when that deadline is removed and we have to create our own deadlines, we turn into these animals that are just we don't ever have that trigger anymore. I just watched a YouTube video. You guys have to watch it. It's about procrastination. It's unbelievable. It's probably one of the best TED Talks I've ever watched. I don't know what the guy's name was, but just Google TED Talk procrastination. It's one of the best TED Talks I've ever watched. And this guy digs into procrastination. And what he basically does, what I think was an amazing visual, he shows this one visual of a whole bunch of tiny little squares, like in a grid almost. And he says, this is how many weeks are in a 90-year-old lifespan's life. And when you look at this grid on the screen, you create a whole new awareness. And what it does is that awareness allows you to begin to realize that there is a deadline, and that deadline is when you're dead. It's a simple visualization, but it had a profound shift for me. So now with this new realization, I now know that I have to do two things. I have to set my own deadlines. So let's use getting in shape, for example. If I want to get into shape, I know for me is I need to create my own deadlines by signing up for events. So I need to sign up for a triathlon. I need to sign up for a jiu-jitsu tournament. I need to sign up for a bodybuilding competition, whatever it may be. Because without those deadlines, I'm going to procrastinate this thing until I possibly die. But with this awareness of these squares and the real deadline, it created this new awareness for me. And now I can put the new tools into place to begin to overcoming this procrastination and creating my own deadlines, because then we have that fuel again. We have that fuel again to get things done. But we use things like perfectionism and making sure we have everything right as excuses, and they feed into our comfort zone. When things start to go wrong, we're going to be like, oh, we didn't do it because of this, because we didn't have the business cards ready yet. I didn't go get that job yet because my resume is not perfect, right? These are the things that push us back into our comfort zone, right? But if you learn to put deadlines on it, if you learn to create awareness around the fact that it doesn't have to be perfect, we just have to do. That is what's going to create a huge transformation for me. It's created a huge transformation for me. I hope it creates a huge transformation for you. So I just wanted to deliver this in an unperfect medium. I'm recording this as I drive to see my nephew's hockey game. And I hope it delivers you amazing value. And guess what? I know it's going to. I know there's going to be one person that hears this and they're going to be like, oh my God, this is what I've been missing. And guess what? It wasn't perfect. The audio was kind of shit, but I still delivered a message. Let go of the perfectionism. It isn't doing that we learn. Doing is always better than learning. And it is in the realization that there are deadlines and there is a deadline. That is how we can overcome procrastination. That is how we can overcome perfectionism. I hope this podcast serves you well. Thanks for taking the time to listen, even though it was in poor quality. And tune in next Wednesday, where I'll be doing a completely different podcast. And I look forward to continuing to deliver you as much value as I possibly can on all medium platforms, even if it isn't perfect. Thanks for tuning in.